Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen, and today I'll be reading chapter 1, the second half of chapter 1 of Double Darrow. Hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get right into it. Darrow had made it halfway across the city when he heard a blast in the distance. He wanted to continue his search, but he knew the first rule of heroism: prioritize the rescue. He may not be a hero in any official capacity, but even vigilantes had to abide by the code if they wanted to be a force for good. Leaping from roof to roof allowed him to reach the fight faster and without being seen, so it was his preferred method of traversing the city. Plus, he was already up here anyway, searching for any sign of the boy with the green curls. They were so focused on getting to the city centre that they nearly ran right past him. Or more accurately, he did run past him. A blur of brilliant green from the corner of his eye had him doing a double take and skidding to abrupt stop. The boy's eyes flashed wider in fear, revealing eyes like a forest after it rains. He had clearly been crying, his eyes were puffy and bloodshot, and tracks ran down his face, clearing the dust and grime he'd somehow gotten on his face since he'd last seen him. For a moment, Darrow was perfectly still in the awkward runner's knee he'd skidded in place. Fear locked into the other child's eyes. They feared moving too fast or saying anything wrong would only scare the boy away again. But as the uncertain seconds ticked by, Darrow watched the fear dissolve into a hollow acceptance. Whatever self-preservation techniques he considered the minute before was no longer worth it. He didn't say anything aloud, but his body language conveyed his message perfectly. It said, "This might as well happen." Taking reluctant advantage of this indifference, Darrow readjusted their stance to instead sit crisscross applesauce in front of the boy and pull out the notebook from his backpack. Recognition flashed for a moment across the boy's freckled face as he looked at the tarnished book in Darrow's hand. Darrow's still mismatched fingers, followed by the utter confusion as he looked up at his new face. Still not wanting to spook them, Darrow slowly extended the notebook towards the boy's direction and gestured with his head for the boy to take it back. The boy swallowed, his barely peeking Adam's apple bobbing with reluctance as he took the book. He flipped it over and back as if inspecting it for booby traps. Once he was content that it would not bite him, his eyes were locked onto Darrow's. "Thank you," he stuttered out. Darrow smiled in a way that he hoped would at least look reassuring. But he still hasn't learnt the intricacies of expression with this new face. "No problem." The sound of distant sirens sounded out in the distance, and both boys instinctively gazed at its direction, but Darrow knew there would be plenty of other heroes and police there to handle that crisis by now. Right now, he was needed here. Prioritize the rescue. "What's your name, kid?" Darrow asked to regain the boy's attention. He seemed confused by the question, but Darrow wasn't sure if it was from the stranger asking his name or from being called a kid by someone who was presumably around the same age as him. Whatever it was, he answered anyway. Midoriya Izuku." They smiled at them again, hoping to convey warmth, but they knew right away that it was a bit too far stretched in the cheeks before they readjusted it. They extended their hand to be shaken, hoping this time the boy would not refuse his grasp. "Nice to meet you, Midoriya. They call me Darrow." Midoriya was at odds with himself in ways he never expected to be. He was almost 99% sure that the person sitting in front of him was the same he encountered in front of the school, but he was also about 80% sure that he looked completely different just under 30 minutes ago. Was he hallucinating? Misremembering? Was this the same person, or were they two different people who had Frankenstein bodies and calico hair? Izuku his panicked lizard brain still thought there was something inherently off about the person before him, but on the other hand, they hadn't done anything particularly mean or harmful to him yet. In fact, they went out of their way to return his notebook to him. So, in a strange turn of events, they were actually the only person to show him kindness today without adding onto his ongoing mental health crisis afterwards. Or at least they hadn't yet. The night was still young. Perhaps the strangest thing about him, besides, well, everything, was a name. Dare Dare? What does... that just means who? That's like being named John Doe in America. That's not a name so much as an absence of a name. And he smiles like he's still learning how to, which would be unsettling if it weren't also somehow kind of charmingly endearing. He may have literally ran away from him after their first meeting, assuming this was indeed the same zombie from before. But something about the obvious effort that they were extruding to seem friendly in their second encounter gave Midoriya the instinctual knowledge that he meant no harm. Midoriya had nothing left to lose, so when Dare offered his hand in greeting, he shook it. I'm sorry if I scared you earlier, Dare said sheepishly. I know I'm not the most charming presence to have sneak up on you. They admitted as they flexed their arm to rub the back of their neck with a shy smile. Midoriya suddenly felt very guilty for his earlier reaction. He tried his best to formulate an acceptable apology that didn't seem too forced. It's okay, I'm sorry, I ran away. You seem really nice, and I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just having a rough day. I guess I'm kind of jumpy. God, I hope not. What? What? The two stared at each other for a long moment before Dare broke the silence once more. You want to, get out of here? Go for a walk or something? Somewhere more ground floorish? A montage of stranger danger lessons he'd heard as a kid began playing in his head. I pinky promise I'm not a villain or anything, Dare reassured, extending his pinky that was a good 12 shades darker than the adjacent finger and 3 lighter than his palm. It was at this moment that Midoriya gave a closer inspection to the boy's outfit. While the damaged and dirty assessment from earlier still held true, it also featured a lot of pockets and pouches as well as a utility belt and what he was pretty sure was a taser. Are you a hero? He asked before he could think better of it. Not exactly, but I'd like to be, so do you, right? Midoriya felt his stomach drop. This was it. The moment this person turned on him, and he would be told his dreams were pointless. He wouldn't even give him the chance. No, he said, with a much colder tone than he intended. I can't be one. So it would just be useless to want that, right? I don't see why not. I hope you don't mind, but I kinda read your notebook. Midoriya panicked a little at this, and based on the rushed words that followed it must have shown. I was trying to look for a return address. I wasn't intentionally being a creep or anything, I promise. But you're freakishly smart, dude. I've never seen such an in-depth analysis, especially someone from your age. Midoriya felt his eyebrows furrow on reflex. This was another strange thing about Dare. They kept talking to him as if he himself wasn't also a kid. It was intriguing, but it was hardly the most mysterious thing about him, so he elected not to question it. That's kind of you to say, but it doesn't matter. Of course it does. A big brain and a bigger heart is the ultimate formula for heroism. I think you'll be great at it. He had said it like it was so matter-of-factly, as if he really believed that's all it took. Against his better judgment, he asked him the question, the one he dreaded the answer to. Even if I don't have a quirk to back it up, you think I could still be a hero? Of course you can. Of course you can still be a hero, Midoriya. Quirks don't matter, actions do. He doesn't know them, not really, but Dare just told him the words he waited to hear his whole life for. He hadn't meant to cry in front of his new acquaintance, but at the same time he really didn't. But Midoriya wept all the same, and before he could think to stop his shameful display, Dare had already swung around to sit next to him and placed a reassuring arm around his shoulders. And that's how he ended up crying ugly giant Midoriya family tears onto the shoulder of a zombie who'd only officially met 5 minutes prior. They stayed on the roof like that for another 20 minutes or so before Midoriya took Dare up on his initial offer to go for a walk. He thought about texting his mother, letting her know that he was out with a friend, but he wasn't entirely sure if that was true or not. Sure, he'd spent 20 minutes staining Dare's shirt with his tears, but he'd never be so presumptuous as to think anyone would want a Deku like him as a friend. So instead he said nothing. It would hardly be the first time he stayed out late chasing heroes to fill his analysis pages. So long as he made it back before dark, it would probably be fine. Dare allowed Midoriya to choose the route of their walk, so he led them in the general direction of a park near his house, figuring he'd be near home in case of an emergency, but would also have something to do once they reached their destination. They made light, pleasant conversation on the way over. Midoriya had a million questions he really wanted to ask Dare, but he didn't really know which, if any, would be appropriate to ask of him. Things like, why don't you use your real name? Or, why do you look like a human quilt? Or, am I nuts? Or do you have a new face? All seemed like potentially sensitive topics, so he opted for the far less interesting inquiries. When they reached the park, they sat on the swings. Midoriya used to come to this park all the time when he was younger, but it had been a few years since his last visit, at least since he was about 7. That's when Kachan's teasing had started to turn truly violent. So Dare eyed Midoriya on the swing next to him. So? Are you okay? Midoriya's face flushed in shame. Yeah, I'm really sorry if I ruined your shirt. Midoriya? Dare grabbed the front of his shirt and gestured wildly at his outfit with his free hand. You can't ruin this. That's the whole point of the costume. It's made for kicking ass and consoling children. They did it again. This had become far too big of a pattern to be ignored. How old are you? He blurted out. Dare seemed to consider his answer for far longer than necessary before he replied. 15, I think. Why? You think? Yeah, they never told me, but you're like what, 14? They measured themselves from a distance against Midoriya's form for a moment before confirming. Yeah, 15 sounds about right. Midoriya wasn't sure if what he was about to say was weird or not, Midoriya wasn't sure if he was about to say that's weird or that's not how age works, but he doesn't get the chance to say either, because all of a sudden Dare is enthusiastically pulling a cell phone with far too many external attachments to be normal from his utility belt and practically tossing it into Midoriya's hand. You've got a cell phone number, right? Give me your number so we can talk. Midoriya's face burned hotly for a moment. No one had ever asked him for his phone number before, nor had anyone given him theirs. His contact list was 5 numbers long, and 2 of them were just emergency services. It used to be 6, but Kachan made him delete his number the second Auntie Mitsuki was out of the room. Talk about what? He asked in his son's state before wincing at his own awkwardness. I don't know, life and stuff? We will need to coordinate somehow. We'll need to coordinate somehow for hangouts and training. The first 2 were already foreign concepts to him. Not that he didn't know people did those, just that anyone would be willing to do them with him. But that last one of the list had truly stupid him. Training? He croaked out as the word got stuck somewhere in his throat. Yup. Dare popped the P sound for emphasis. You want to be a hero? Then you've got to train for it. Midoriya didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing, just kicked his feet in the sand. Unless, Dare hesitated, you would rather not? No, I want to, it's just... Midoriya did not say, I don't want you to waste your time helping out a lost cause like me, out loud. He didn't think he had to. Dare's gaze dropped to his own feet for a moment before he swallowed with a nod. You'd rather find someone a little more qualified and less me-shaped to train you. That's not what I meant! Izuku panicked as he realized the insult his new acquaintance thought he was giving. It's okay, I can help you find a better teacher. Dare reassured as he gave him a half smile that did not reach his eyes. I don't want a better teacher. Oh, wait, that's not what I meant either. I mean, let me start over? Dare gestured for him to speak, so Midoriya took a deep breath as he formulated his response. I'm honored that you would even consider trying to help me, or even spend time with me at all. I guess I just don't understand why. Like, why me? A couple of reasons, most of them selfish, really. For starters, I was hoping you would let me read the rest of your notes. Figured you'd be more likely to say yes if I was doing you a favor too. Notes? Oh, you mean my analysis books? You really want to read them? What for? Well, they're fascinating, great reading material for trivial buffs and all that. But if I'm being brutally honest, I know as much as you do about other heroes. Knowing as much as you do about other heroes will make my job a lot easier. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I still don't understand. Well, vigilante work isn't exactly legal, so, knowing how to best outrun, outmaneuver, or just plain avoid the pros would be a big help. It makes more sense than he would like it to. Dare had said he wasn't exactly a hero earlier, and promised he wasn't a villain either, so being a vigilante was the only explanation for his actions. He was a little disappointed in himself for not putting the clues together sooner. He was also a little conflicted. The notion that analysis he had done for the intention of helping heroes instead was being used to make their jobs harder wasn't exactly his first idea of a good step onto his path of heroism. But on the other hand, it's not like Dare would use it to pick fights with them, just to evade capture. It's not illegal to help your friends avoid arrest. Wait, no, yes it is. That's called aiding and abetting. Would that make him a criminal? Would he get arrested for that? Maybe he should be writing his analysis and code to avoid falling into the wrong hands. Wait, that's ridiculous. They couldn't be that dangerous. It's not like he was writing down any information that wasn't already common knowledge. Anyone with half a brain could look at the same clip same articles and news clips he had and drawn the same conclusions, so it's not like anyone had shown interest in reading them before, so I really didn't catch a word of that, but I'm gonna cut you off there, Dare said suddenly. Midoriya slammed his jaw shut and covered his mouth with one hand. He really needed to annoy his annoying habit of rambling when he didn't mean to. Dare shuffled in his swing to see Midoriya's face better as he continued. You don't have to let me read them. If you're allowed to say no if it makes you uncomfortable. I'll still train you either way. You will? Of course. You're going to be a great hero one day, and when that happens, I'll have the honor of saying I knew you before you made it big. There was practically stars in his eyes as he said this, a huge grin he'd finally mastered the use of, plastered across his face. Midoriya could tell he really meant it, and suddenly a second bout of happy tears threatened to fall from Midoriya's eyes. Oh no, what's wrong? Too much pressure? Dare asked as he saw water fill in his eyes. With a sniffle he replied, No, it's just you have so much faith in me. But I've done absolutely nothing to prove I'm of any real value to you. What makes you so sure? Dare shrugged. Call it a hunch? Midoriya gave a polite smile in response. He still didn't understand any of this, but if Dare was willing to place his time, effort, and belief in Izuku, then he would need to commit 100% to making sure he didn't let him down or make him regret it. It's kinda getting late. Let me walk you home? The possible older boy asked. Oh, you don't have to do that. I know, I want to. Unless you don't want me knowing where you live, in which case I could always walk you a block or two away from your place to keep it safe. No, I don't mind. It's just I don't want to burden you any further than I already have, and I'm sure you have places you'd rather be. You're not a burden. Dare hops up from his swing and extends his mismatched hand in an offer to Midoriya's of his. Midoriya's face flashed for a second as he accepted the help, avoiding the other kid's gaze. He wasn't used to compliments. On second thought, it really wasn't much of a compliment, so much as there was a lack of an insult. He wasn't used to that either. They were a block into their journey when Midoriya realized he hadn't exactly denied the claim that there would be other places he'd rather be. But it seemed too late now to worry about that. He would just need to add it to the rapidly growing list of favors he owed the boy. Hey, you know Dagoba Beach? Dare asked. You mean the little beach everyone dumps all their trash on? That's the one. I want to use that as our base of operations for now. Okay. Midoriya had no idea why that particular venue appealed to Dare as a training ground, but he was by no means an expert, and he wouldn't dream of questioning the kind miracle stranger, acquaintance, friend, mentor. He'd have to figure that out later. Does tomorrow after school work for you? Midoriya's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. He wasn't expecting to start so soon. Then again, the less time before they began, the less time Dare had a chance to change his mind. Yeah, that works for me. Sweet. Want to meet me there, or should I pick you up? I'll meet you there, Midoriya said a little too fast. The idea of adding one more favor to the list was unforgivable to him. I know the way. Something in Dare's utility belt beeped out at him. He glanced down real quick and then cursed under his breath. He glanced up and bit his lip, looking conflicted. I'm really sorry, but duty calls. Will you be alright making it back on your own? Yeah, of course. Don't let me keep you. Right. Real quick. Make sure you bring extra water with you tomorrow and some workout clothes for you to change into. Don't want to mess up your uniform. Oh, and maybe find a first aid kit if you have one. Just in case. What else? That should be it for now, I think. The device beeped again. Shit, I've got to go, but promise you'll text me when you're home so I know you're safe. Dave was already sidestepping nervously in the direction of whatever distress call he was getting. Not wanting to hold him back any further, Midoriya nodded urgently and waved goodbye. Promise? Dave gave him a look between a smirk and a gaze. A smirk and a glare. I promise. Now go. I'll be alright. And with that, he turned on his heels and started jogging back down the street and up an alley. When Midoriya got back to his house, he kicked off his shoes at the door and yelled, "I'm home!" to the empty house. It would be another hour or so before his mother got back from work, but he had got into the habit of saying it anyway. He heated up some leftovers and parked himself in front of the coffee table so he could eat. Watching the news, he started on his homework, pausing only for a moment to nervously text a quick "I'm alive, haha," to Dare in an effort to fulfill his promise. When he turned to the TV, his stomach dropped, face paling instantly as he took in the sight. It was the sludge monster from earlier, the one that All Might had captured, only he wasn't captured at all. He had done a lot of damage to a whole city block, and to make matters worse, the reporter said a middle schooler had been taken hostage by a villain and was currently being hospitalized with injuries he sustained before a hero with the right quirk was able to arrive on the scene. They kept the student's identity hidden for security reasons, but it hardly mattered. It was all his fault. Looking back now, the plastic bottle All Might had captured the villain in was no longer in his pocket when they had landed on the roof. He must have dropped it because stupid Deku jumped onto him as he was taking off, and now that sludge guy had done all this damage and injured some other innocent kid. He stared at the screen like it was a train wreck. As much as he wanted to, he couldn't look away. His leftovers were getting cold again, and his pen was hovering above his homework, but he couldn't move. An intermediate amount of time later, Izuku was shocked out of his trance by the sound of his phone buzzing on the table. "Good, I'm glad." Smiley face. Midoriya was still so dazed that he had to look back at his own message to understand. He was saying that he was glad he was alive. He couldn't help but laugh at that. He wasn't quite so sure he agreed. This is now your time to take a sip of drink and take care of yourself like I'm doing now. Okay, make sure to take care of yourself as you continue this. Let's keep going. The following morning was equally rough. He nearly forgot to grab the supplies Dare had asked him to bring to the beach for their training. In his rush to go back to the apartment to grab it, he tripped and gave himself a bruise on his left cheek. But the worst part was when he noticed the empty desk at school. The teacher announced that Bakugo was going to be out for a few days. I'm sure you've all seen it on the news by now, was the only reason he would give. Midoriya was sick to his stomach. He pieced together those implications. The anonymous middle schooler that his foolishness had gotten hurt was none other than Kachan. He was so pissed off at himself that he almost didn't show up for his training with Dare. He didn't feel like he deserved the chance he was being given anymore. But standing up the first person to willingly hang out with you and throwing away the effort they had already made seemed rude, so he kicked his feet remorsefully the whole way there instead. When he got there, he wandered aimlessly in the sand amongst heaps of trash, realizing only then that he'd never asked which part of the beach they were meeting at. He sent a quick inquiry text to Dare, and almost immediately the sliding door of the half-buried van slid open next to him. The sudden noise and movement startled him. He leapt up with an involuntary yelp, only to realize the ambush was only Dare. "Yikes, dude, you scared me!" Izuku clutched at his rapid beating heart to settle it. Then the moment of secondary panic, realizing that he called Dare dude, beyond being informal, he wasn't also entirely sure if that was accurate in Dare's case. He still couldn't quite get a read on their gender due to the androgynous mismatch, and on second inspection, once again changed parts. But he didn't seem to react at all. So at a minimum, they weren't offended. Still, Midoriya made a mental note to ask their pronouns later. For now, he'd get his breathing back in order post-scare. "Sorry about that. I didn't realize how close you were to the van." Dare climbed the rest of the way out and approached, the face morphing into a smile, from a smile to a look of concern the closer they got. Dare then pinched Midoriya's chin with his thumb and carefully tilted his head to the right, inspecting the bruise he had gotten that morning. "What happened?" "Oh, I tripped," he replied nervously, embarrassed by both his own clumsiness and also the sudden contact. Dare squinted at him, as if he didn't quite believe him, but said nothing to dispute it. "Right. Did you bring the stuff?" "Mm-hmm." "Cool. Go ahead and get changed in the van. And don't let Patches, that's my cat, give you any sass. She likes to think she's the queen of the beach, but she's really just a big scaredy cat." Once inside the van, Midoriya couldn't help but do some cursory, involuntary snooping. The van was outfitted with a small workshop and a heavily modified laptop, a cooler, and a beat-up mattress. A beaded curtain separated the back from the gutted fan from the driver's compartment in the front. But a fat but dingy calico cat sat on the dashboard, glaring at the intruder. Between the evidence here and the things Dare had just mentioned, it was looking highly likely that this van wasn't just a hangout spot for the young vigilante. This was his home. Izuku was suddenly overwhelmed with grief and worry to his new friend/mentor. He was only a year older than him, presumably, yet he was homeless and living in a van, covered in junk, all by himself, minus the cat, of course. He contemplated asking his mum if there was any way Dare could stay in their spare room, but in all the excitement yesterday, he never actually got around to telling his mum he even made a new friend, much less a friend that was going to start training him to be a hero. And the idea of having to explain to his mum how they met and why he still hasn't given up on his dangerously and most likely pointless dreams was a task he was hoping to have more time to ease into. One thing at a time. He'd get through his training today, and if Dare didn't give up on him and cast him aside immediately, then he'll bring up the idea of introducing him to his mum. Maybe they could have a sleepover this weekend, and then just keep him indefinitely. It would be an easier request than asking for a permanent placement right away. Once he was dressed and exited the van and helped Dare stand up from his sandy spot in the ground. "Alright, so I guess we should go over the game plan with you, and we can workshop some other things together, yeah?" "Okay, what's your plan?" "Well, I'm thinking we'd start off your training with a 5-pronged attack, and we can edit and figure out more things about your strengths and weaknesses." Midoriya pulled out a pen and a fresh notebook that he had shoved into his bag that morning. He had preemptively labelled it Hero Training for the Future #1, for lack of a better title, and then nodded for Dare to start. Dare was smiling at him with an unreadable expression, but Midoriya elected to ignore that in favour of paying attention to what he said next. Prong 1, getting you into shape. I know you're pretty fast, based on how quickly you ran away yesterday, but regardless of what fighting style you choose, you're going to need to build up a bit more muscle. The whiplash of guilt from the reminder of his less than tactful first intro to Dare leading immediately into the shame of him being so scrawny, had Midoriya looking queasy, making a queasy-looking smile. But if Dare noticed it, he did nothing to acknowledge it. Which brings me to my first question. Do you have any particular style in mind? Not really, he admitted sheepishly. His favourite hero was All Might. His favourite hero had always been All Might, and all his life he wanted to be like him. But realistically, he was never going to be anywhere near as strong. He wasn't going to be anywhere near strong enough to even think of imitating his fighting style. He wasn't sure which hero, if any, he'd have any luck trying to copy without having a similar quirk. Maybe you could just show me how you fight normally? I'm sure that it would be easiest for you to teach, right? Dare laughed a bit too hard at that before getting a hold of himself to explain. No. If you fought the way I fight, you'd come home in a full body cast every night. The recovery time would mean you'd only get one fight a session, which would be insufficient as well as painful. Oh, was all he could think to say about that. He didn't think he was all that fragile. Years of taking a beating from then and then hiding the damage from his mother meant, if nothing else, he knew how to take a punch, and his pain tolerance was pretty high, but he didn't think it would be wise to share that at the moment. Well, what would you suggest then? Dare steepled his hands together in front of his face, eyeing Midoriya up and down as he considered his options. Well, your current build is both wiry and a little short, and I've already mentioned the speed. I'm thinking you would go for dexterity and stealth over brawn. It'll be easier for you to build up. That way it'll be easier to build up and perfect in our current time frame anyway. If you can outsmart your opponents and avoid getting hit, the lack of overall power won't mean so much. Like a ninja? He said a little too enthusiastically, causing Dare to chuckle. Yeah, man, like a ninja. Sounds good? He said as he scribbled down some notes. Cool. Well, we'll make sure to focus on that goal aside from your overall bulk up and fitness prong. Then we can utilize the landscape and get some stealth and parkour training for prong 2. Izuku nodded with enthusiastic focus as he continued writing. Prong 3, I want to try teaching you some basic mechanics and hacking skills. I have a feeling you're already pretty good at it. Really? He never really considered himself all that tech savvy, but he wasn't computer illiterate either. Maybe he could do it if he tried. He'd just never thought of that before. Hell yeah, man! Which actually brings me to my second set of questions for you. Okay, shoot. Okay, so obviously your first choice is to get straight into the heroics course. However, the entrance exam for UA is notoriously unbalanced. It's hard for anyone who doesn't have a flashy damage including quirk to pass it. So as a backup, you can also apply for one of the other departments and then test your way in through the US Sports Festival. All of which is to say, Gen Ed is the easiest to get into, but I'm hoping you'll consider support instead. He knew getting placed into the heroes course was a long shot. Getting placed directly into the heroics course was a long shot. Jumping the ocean in a single bound type long. So he expected he needed a backup plan, but once again was stumped for why he would go for support instead of Gen Ed. Why? Well, it's kind of multifactored as well. Not many people know this, but the support track is kind of because the support track is kind of known for inventing gear and making track that gets stuff advertised the most. But the support course actually has 3 different tracks. There's one for designing costumes and such, which is the second favourite among the hopeful designers. And there's also an analytics and consultation track. Izuku knew of the second track, but he had never heard of the third. He felt his heart flutter at the possibilities. It sounded perfect. Since when was it available? He asked excitedly. About 20 years or so now, but hardly anyone ever takes it. They've only had a handful of students in it before, all of whom were scouted from other courses. His heart sank. If scouting was required, he'd never make the cut. Hey, don't be so glum. I've got a plan for that if you're really interested. But it's actually not my main reason to try pushing you to support, Dare said before Midoriya had a chance to get too sad about it. Oh? Yeah. See, the thing is, a few well-crafted support items can actually make or break a hero's effectiveness. Having a solid arsenal of tools and weapons designed for your wants and needs in mind could make your lack of quirk irrelevant. And the best way to get a bunch of high-quality gear is to either make it yourself or make friends with people who do. Either way, access to the first track of the support course will be a big asset to you. And even if you go into analytics, there'll be a few students that often share they often share a home room with 1 or 2 of the other tracks. So, if you show up with the base knowledge of support gear and that stuff already, then they'll be more likely to pair me with them. So I'll have access to the workshop and could potentially make connections with some inventors. And even if I'm not scouted, I could potentially learn to make my own gear as a last resort. Exactly. I see you're getting it now. Okay, I'll list that as my backup for when I fail the hero entrance exam. If you fail it, Dare corrected him. It will be hard, not impossible, but yes, you should test for support too as a backup. And I'll handle plan C I'll handle plan C of getting you recruited straight to analytics on my end. How are you going to do that? Don't worry about it, that's strictly a me problem. But nothing. Moving on to prong 4. Midoriya grumbled as he continued writing their notes anyway. Prong 4 is going to be training on whatever weapons and gear you can... Whatever gear and weapons end up making acquiring, so you actually know how to use them. This is going to be the last step of your training because building up the body and skills to utilize them properly has to come first. So don't get excited about that just yet. If that's the last step, what's prong 5? Prong 5, the most important one of all, self-care. Midoriya tilted his head in confusion. You're gonna be asking your body and mind to learn and master a lot of highly demanding skills in just under a 10-month frame of time. Not to mention the fact that you can't let your normal academics slip during this time either. If you don't take care of yourself properly, both physically and mentally, you're gonna crash and burn. We're gonna start each day with some yoga and end with some meditation at least once a week. You're gonna take a rest day. Do nothing but chill out or maybe do something fun but low impact. I'm gonna need you to make a promise that you'll honor the sanctity of your rest days. Okay, I promise. He doesn't hesitate to verbalize it. He has already learnt last night that when Dai asks you to make a promise, he expects you to verbally agree to it before he leaves you alone. Good. I also expect you to be honest with both me and yourself and take more than one day if you need it. We will adjust to the pace and intensity of your training so that you'll get the maximum effects with minimal burnout. It's going to be hard, but it shouldn't be so hard that you do more harm than good, yeah? Okay, I can do that. Good. I'm also going to teach you some basic first aid. This is not only to help you patch yourself up if you need it, but it'll get you ahead of the curve on rescue training. Midoriya wrote all this down as well. So, to recap, we're going to be building muscle, endurance, and flexibility during your regular workouts. We're also going to train yourself in parkour. So we're going to train you in self, parkour, mechanics, hacking, and first aid. I'm thinking of a rotating schedule where we focus on a different area each day once your workout is done. And then the sixth day can be whatever we feel needs the most work. That's going to be your base level. For the first 4 months, your training is going to be getting a handle on all of that before you even try to worry about throwing your first punch. With me so far? Got it. Then, we're going to take those skills to develop a fighting style, utilizing those strengths, followed by incorporating whatever gear you come up with. That should be the next 4 months after that. The final 2 is about putting it all together, perfecting whatever hasn't already become second nature, and studying up for the entrance exam, because regardless of which track you end up in, you still need to pass the basic exam for Gen Ed stuff. Right. And all the while, you gotta keep your grades up, and take a lot of care for yourself. It's gonna be a lot. Like a lot. You think you can handle it? I've got this, he said with a confidence he wasn't aware he possessed until he heard it for himself, causing Dare to smile at him brightly. Hell yeah, you do. It took a bit to get everything planned out, so we're just going to do the basic workout today. But tomorrow we're going to get started on the rest of phase 1. Please text me if something comes up and you need to skip a day or start later than usual, alright? Right. Sweet. Now, go put your stuff in the van and follow me to the pier. We're going to start with yoga. 3 hours later, they had finished their workout. Dare assured Izuku that once they got the routine, this part of their training would only take about half of that time. But today, it was almost 7. It was almost 7 by the time he had shoveled into his house. He was feeling tired, he was feeling a little sore and extremely tired, but he was also feeling determined and excited for more. He only had about 30 minutes left to shower and get started on his homework before his mum would return home. But as he stumbled into the bathroom, he caught sight of an unfamiliar sight in the mirror. A smile, a genuine smile. He wasn't forcing it to keep others from worrying or practicing it just for an imaginary future interview. He was just perfectly content enough for a smile to form on its own. Wow, he could hardly remember the last time he felt that. Paradoxically, the realization of the emotion and the consequent realization of the previous absence caused it to dissolve as quickly as it had arrived. But it was there. It was however fleeting it may have been, he felt it, and he was determined to feel it again. If sore muscles and fatigue was what it took, then that's a price he was beyond willing to pay. Okay, holy shit, that was one long chapter. I wish I did more yesterday so I didn't have to do it all today. Well, it's probably a couple of days after the last ep that you're seeing this, because I'm trying to spread things out, make it more consistent and shit. But yeah, I'm recording this the day after I recorded the last video. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to take care of yourself, and I will link the original fic back in the description, as well as a book that this author has made as well. Make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!